The whole point of this season is core players developing for the next good team. Let's discuss the updated core list with my guest on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, lifelong Sox fan and contributor for SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fansided Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. Additionally, follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. So I love it when BeefLoaf provides an update of who he thinks makes up the team's core, and I got him on the show today to discuss his latest updates after a couple more call-ups and demotions. And then we're going to discuss if Lenyn Sosa can ever reach core status or if he's just Daniel Palka 2.0. And finally, let's discuss some former players we miss and maybe we don't miss. And again, from the 108 is BeefLoaf, soon to have his own bobblehead. They're going to get their own appreciation night. It's going to be a huge festivity. How's it going, Beef?
It's going great, Todd. Good to be back. Good to talk to you. We were chatting a little bit before. Yeah, the bobblehead night is Tuesday, September 16th. If you happen to be in and around Sox Park and want to come out and get our bobblehead, it's a special ticket. You can get it at 108.ing/bobblehead. 108.ing/bobblehead. You go to that link, you get the special ticket. You're going to get the patio party. You're going to get a game ticket. They're sitting mostly everyone who buys in sections 108, 109, 110. I've heard 108 long sold out, 109 almost sold out, and so they're moving on to 110. So we'll see how many we can get sold. We have personal goals of how many we want to get sold, so keep buying. Everyone keep buying.
All right. So, Beef, before I ask you a question, I just want to show the viewing audience on YouTube. Here is your updated core list. This is the tweet at Mr. Delicious 13. So you got Teal and Caro at catcher. You got Vargas at first base. Interesting. And I kind of agree that eventually we'll have to go over to first base. You got Chase Mydroth at second, Colson Montgomery at shortstop, Robert in center, Benintendi, and then you got Smith. And then I love how you have the Cant Mart Burke combo, Taylor, and then Vassell. So right off the bat, does Jonathan Cannon and Sean Burke get taken off the list now that they've been demoted?
You know, it's a good question. I made that list on July 26th. And all year I had kind of looked at the three guys, Jonathan Cannon, Sean Burke, and Davis Martin, is kind of competing for one roster spot. Not that I had anyone in mind that was going to take all the rest of them, but as we got through the first 2 months of the year, it became clear to me that Shane Smith kind of had the stuff to me that looked like he's going to get an opportunity in 2026. He's going to be a part of this kind of going forward. With those three guys, just a variety of different things hindered them. You know, Jonathan Cannon, he has the durability. You know, he's made the most starts kind of out of that group, but he's the most hittable as well. He doesn't have the strikeout stuff. You know, with Davis Martin, the injury concern has been a problem kind of all throughout his career. And then with Sean Burke, it's been command. He's had issues with command. He's the opening day starter, but it was kind of like, this is a high volatility starter. It's high risk, high reward with Burke. So I thought out of the three of them, you might get someone. Yeah, I think it's probably worse for Cannon because Burke has been up and down all year. But I don't think he was bottoming out when he got sent down to the minors the way Jonathan Cannon was. Jonathan Cannon's stuff was just staying in the zone, being extremely hittable. I think he's much further down the pecking order now than he was. And I think Davis Martin is cleared the other two guys. But I wouldn't push Burke completely out of the window yet. I think they're going to give him a little rest here. I don't know if he comes back before the end of the season. But I think when you're heading to 2026, he's definitely part of the mix that are trying to get a starting rotation spot.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, especially with Burke, who definitely, I think his ceiling is still being a very solid number 3 with the stuff that he has. But with Jonathan Cannon, just the lack of that finishing move that basically, like, he doesn't have a stone cold stunner type pitch. He's definitely going to be a guy that I question would even be a number 5 starter going forward in the big leagues. I mean, obviously somebody's going to keep giving him a chance, but it just looks like he's tumbled down the prestige rank that I would say when all these other guys get back healthy. Now, is Colson Montgomery the fastest that you've ever added to the core? Because I think he was like, he gets called up in July and all of a sudden it's like 2 weeks later, he's on the list.
July 4th call up. And what interesting about Colson Montgomery, the roller coaster ride of Colson Montgomery, Todd, was initially, he gets drafted. He's kind of a late first round draft pick. He's an older high school kid out of Indiana, cold weather state. He's an older kid, but he's athletic. He hasn't completely devoted to baseball because he played basketball and everything. And then he comes out and absolutely crushes and shoots up prospect rankings, and he's way up there. And the 108ers, we were a little like, I don't know about this. We're not sure. And we were taken aback a little bit about the high ranking. Then as he had some struggles and tumbled back down, and people are throwing him off top 100 lists, we were like, hang on a second. He's still a good athlete. Let's just see what this ends up turning out to be. He's a tall guy. He's got long levers. You can struggle with the swing a little bit in the minors. When he got called up, Treasy and I focused in on two things with regards to him showing up on the White Sox. Number one, would he be competent at shortstop? And I think so far the eye test is telling you that he looks like a shortstop to me. I don't know if he has real range, but he has length. Because he's a big, lengthy athlete, he seems to get the balls that he needs to. He's got a strong arm at short. So, I feel totally comfortable with the defense as of right now, today, this year-old Colson Montgomery. And then would he get to the power? There was a lot of concern about the swing and miss, which is absolutely still there. He's striking out a ton at the major league level. But he has easily gotten to the power. And really, those are the two levers that need to be pulled for Colson Montgomery. He might stink for a month and a half going forward, and then he'll have patches where he hits 5 home runs in a week, and you're like, oh my God, this is the best player ever. I think it's going to be feast or famine a lot like that for a little while with regards to the profile at the plate. But as long as he's getting to those two things, the dependable defense and the power, I think he's easily a core piece, and one of the better core pieces, to be honest with you.
And I remember you and I talking about this at a show at the beginning of the season where you were like, well, if you send Colson down and then he stinks, what do you do? And I just remember saying, you got to eventually bring him up. So I'm glad that they still eventually brought him up. I'm glad they gave him the Arizona reset, though, too. Kind of like, that's the thing, just circling back to Burke. I'm like, they're talking about getting him refocused. So then why are you sending him to the one ballpark where he was terrible pitching? Like, if you look at Burke's numbers in Charlotte, he has terrible ERAs. And a lot of pitchers have terrible ERAs. To me, it should have been like, you should have given him the phantom hip pointer injury and sent him to Glendale.
Well, it's funny. We talked about this on the 108 podcast, Treasy and I was of the thought process. This was the day before he got demoted because things were going bad or whatever. We were having a long discussion about him. And I was of the thought process that because of the durability, because he's pitched more innings before, and because he could stay out the rest of the season, I thought that they would keep him here, let him try to work through it, suffer through bad starts if they need to, and save that minor league option, not send him down there and provide more career length with regards to the minor league options, meaning they can push him up and down a couple different years if they need him as a 6 or 7 starter or whatever. But it's interesting the time pressure they put on him. By sending him down this late in the season, they're going to burn an option. So he's going to get to 2026 with only one minor league option left. So they're giving him the, crap or get off the pot situation, Todd, like you're mentioning. He does not have a finishing move. I think they're effectively telling him, you better figure this out because there's other guys coming. There's guys coming off injury. There's younger guys coming to take these spots. You're going to be in trouble. So figure it out now.
All right. Well, speaking of someone that hasn't gotten to core status yet, but has been crushing a lot of home runs is Lenyn Sosa. And I want to discuss after the break with Beef if he's just the second coming of Daniel Palka or what it's going to take for him to get to core status. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes it all possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app for, like when New York comes to town at the end of the month. It's always a must ticket to get when the Bronx Bomber comes to town. Game Time Zone Deals picks the best seats in your section for you, too. And seat views right in the app before you buy, so you know exactly where you'll be. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms. So make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. And after you're done checking out the Locked On White Sox podcast, you should always check out the From the 108 podcast, like the Au Jus, hosted by my guest, BeefLoaf. Again, Beef, where can we find all your great content?
You can go to fromthe108.com. You can also find us on YouTube at From the 108. That's where the majority of things are. You can go to our bobblehead game it's 108.ing/bobblehead. We have it Tuesday, September 16th at Sox Park. They're making a bobblehead of us, and you can buy it.
Yeah, it's really neat that the White Sox right now are realizing, hey, we stink. So let's tap into the fan movements, like, the Bum cast, they did with Southpaw's birthday and,
Southpaw's birthday, exactly.
Yeah, and then they're like, you know what? Let's go grab the From the 108 guys, because they actually keep paying money to us and keep coming out and watching games and making it.
We're still here.
Yeah, actually making it seem like this is a reason why you should go to baseball games. I was talking about it on an episode a couple days ago. Like, one of the reasons why the White Sox can still technically draw like for a game is like, hey, you can go hang out with fellow White Sox fans because they're good people and get good food, that type of stuff. Maybe put a winning product on there. Like right now, they don't have much of a winning product, but they got this guy, Lenyn Sosa. He is crushing home runs left and right, but he has not hit core status. Beef, why is he the next Daniel Palka?
I don't know if he is the next Daniel Palka, Todd, but I've been looking for someone to come out of nowhere and give us a Daniel Palka season. And for those who weren't paying that close of attention to the White Sox in 2018, Daniel Palka was a guy they just kind of scooped up, added to the 40-mans, like, let's see what he does. And he didn't play much to start the year. And then once he got a regular role, he just started crushing home runs and hit 27 home runs, led the White Sox in home runs that season. And it was a very much like a surprise, like, who is this guy? And next thing you know, the fans were loving him, and he was like the next big thing. Now, that fell off shortly in the 2019 season. So, but hey, let's ignore that for the purposes of this discussion. I've been looking for a guy to pop up and kind of have this really good year that we're not expecting. And for me, Lenyn Sosa has been that guy this year because he's leading the White Sox in home runs. And when I made that last core list, Lenyn was still rolling out a 2.5-3% walk rate on the season. A lot of it felt like smoke and mirrors, Todd, that like, okay, the batting average is decent, but the on base still stinks. Yes, he does hit the ball hard. We know that just in general about Lenyn, but it hasn't been consistent enough. And then he has absolutely caught fire in the last 2 months. Yeah, she's got 11 home runs since July 4th. I mean, it's just like blistering power. And there's a lot of people who are like, well, they don't have a defensive position for him. And the way I was looking at it at the time was that I thought they were looking more as the middle group was going to be Montgomery and Mydroth. But Mydroth's hitting has dropped off mightily, and he's not really providing that much. And the White Sox have been a little more favoring an offensive-based lineup. And so they started giving Lenyn Sosa more looks at first, which initially were pretty bad. He made some real bad mistakes when he played first early on. But it looks like he's gotten a little bit better. And then they've also been playing him at second. And he's continued to thrive. He's continued to hit. I don't think he's ever going to be a 10% walk rate guy, Todd, but he is a guy who hits the bat on the ball and hits the ball hard. And so I think by the next time I produce this, he'll be on there somewhere. But the White Sox seem to be building right now, for me, a portfolio of position players that I'm not sure everyday players, but you probably can play them 5 days a week. And I would put Mydroth in that basket. I would put Sosa in that basket. I'd put probably Brooks Baldwin in that basket to a lesser degree, Miguel Vargas, where I don't know if any of these guys are like, they have to start absolutely every day, but they're good enough to be playing most of the week. And so, like, it's interesting that the way the build is working out, they're trying to just throw decent bats at this thing and see what sticks. And right now, some stuff is sticking, which is good to see.
Yeah, they've got better raised floor players. And the question, I think the next hurdle that Lenyn Sosa has to clear for me is, first of all, he's the anomaly. He's not Godfather 3 anymore. At least he's not that player that, draws you back in. He's just an anomaly because, like you said, like, he doesn't have a very high walk rate. He's a decent, he's got a decent average of 270, and I could see him maybe being a 270, 280 hitter, like kind of those throwback decent hitters, but It's the slug. He's going to have the slug there to keep his OPS at 750. And that's where it's like, do you really want a guy? Because I can make a suggestion of where his core status is. And I think Ozzie Guillen even said it when he's been on the score. It's DH, but he's going to be.
But it's tough to have if on a good team, it's tough to have a DH that's that light in a way, right? He's not probably going to. It's not going to be a 900 OPS. It's not going to be 30 home runs. So I see what you're saying, Todd, about the power there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like where that's why he's an anomaly. Like, do you really want to make that guy? Because again, with a low walk weight, it's going to keep his OPS down, his on base percentage down when you just do the math. So like you're looking at maybe a 750, 775 OPS, which is good. But again, for a DH designated hitter, that's a guy that you want hitting, having an 800, 900 OPS. And, even if they have a 280 average, it gets outweighed that. And then, pops 30 home runs, where Lenyn, it's like maybe he pops 20, 25 home runs. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, other argument I've heard about this is that, Lenyn Sosa, he's a knucklehead, right? He makes a lot of dumb mistakes or whatever. And that's like a throwback to the old Sox where they were not the brightest team or whatever. But my guy Ken W.O. told me, he's a beef. You can have one knucklehead. The rest of these guys are pretty smart. They're smart ball players. So you can have one knucklehead in there as long as he hits. And so maybe that is the case. Maybe that's all right. You're drowned out by the intelligence of the rest of the team. So as long as you go out there and hit, just do it. I think there's, as we look at this core right now, Todd, we're getting to the point, like step one for Getz was strip away all the stuff that we know was trash, replace it with better parts. I think we're done with step one or close to being done with step one, where you look at this roster and the lineup and everything. When you look at it every day, it's like there's competent players out here. So it's not like there's a bunch of trash on the roster. We're like, well, we definitely got to get rid of that guy. They've kind of shed a lot of that stuff, and you want to watch a lot of these guys play.
Yeah, and
step two. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
Yeah, step two is going to be replacing some of these guys that are decent players with better versions, better players than they are. And they're not at that point yet. It's either going to be some of these guys taking steps up, and we're kind of seeing like Edgar Carroll's been absolutely on fire in the second half. It's like, okay, if that guy really can hit like that, okay, he's one of those guys that is that next step. And Kyle Teal with the powers lately coming. So my catchers, I think they're fine. We're not going to worry about them. But there's going to be some of these positions where you're going to look next year and say, can't we do a little better than that? Can't we start doing better than that? And you see the talent maybe maxed out, and you're going to be looking at Chris Getz like, all right, who's next? Who we flipping out of here?
Yeah, I mean, for example, like going back, just like, do you put Lenyn Sosa and Chase Mydroth together at second base? Because the one position I think you can sometimes have Lenyn Sosa play where even he can sometimes overcome his stupidity is second. If you just tell him where to stand, he sometimes seems to do better because he at least doesn't have to go like find a base. Like he just can't find a base if he's to his back. Like remember how bad he was at third base last year, and
it was tough.
Even worse at first. But if you put him at second, it's there. But again, what do you go with the slugging second baseman who doesn't walk, or do you go with the guy that can still somewhat hit? We don't know if he can fully hit, but he's at a 250, but will get on base, on that.
Yep.
So that's just kind of where they are. And you're right. Like it seems like they've got better raised floor players, and that's what the next year team needs. But could they just do a little bit better? Because like Miguel Vargas, great tear that he had after that swing adjustment, but it kind of looks like he's now tapered off, and he's going to is what he is, a solid first base, third base defender, but he's not going to have a ton of pop. Like I don't see him.
He's like a league average hitter, Todd, basically, which is good. It's a step up, like you're saying. It's a raised floor. It's a step up from what we had before. Even when the White Sox had decent teams, and you had like a stars and scrubs situation where like the supporting cast, if you will, you didn't have enough of these guys who are just like, that's just like an average MLB player. This is extremely useful guy. They were starting to cultivate a lot of those guys. That's good, but maybe they don't got so many of the stars yet that they're eventually going to.
Yeah, and just to quickly circle back before I got to hit another break is like Daniel Palka was kind of just, as you said, he's just kind of grabbed off the scrap heap. Matt Davidson, same thing. There wasn't these like high pedigree guys. Lenyn Sosa at one point was a top 5 prospect in the White Sox system and a top 10 prospect, and he might be the best international free agent signing they had from like teenage, years to growth, where like Luis Robert Jr. and Jose Abreu, they were just guys that they just kind of, they were already they were already adults. Like Jose Abreu was 27 years old when he signed with the White Sox. Right. So that type of stuff. So it's not like they he was
already one of the best players in the world. It wasn't, they weren't developing him at all.
Yeah. And like Luis Robert Jr. wasn't he like 20? And it was like kind of the word was out like, this guy's going to be very, very good. But before I hit the break, do you feel though like Lenyn is sort of also a victim of last decade's rebuild, failing in that, like if this was 2018, as you said, if this is Lenyn Sosa, we would be like, oh my gosh, he's hitting home runs. Yes, this guy could potentially be a stud like Daniel Palka and Matt Davidson. Like these guys could be guys we can move forward with. And it's like hindsight now being 2020, there's some flaws in the game. Kind of like with Lenyn. There's some flaws here.
I think right now we as Sox fans are in a better position mentally to absorb Lenyn Sosa doing what he's doing, because with the last rebuild, you were kind of expecting, okay, these 5 guys got to be superstars and they got to carry this whole thing. And we saw that crash and burn. It didn't work. And we're like, okay, what we need is a lot of guys who are decent players, could do certain things, and you fill up the roster with those guys. So I think a lot of White Sox fans are looking at Lenyn's like, yeah, he's flawed in some ways, but he does some of these things well. So let's just use the things he does well and get some mileage out of that. And I think Sox fans have, I don't want to say matured, but we saw what just happened. We're like, okay, we can live with this for now. Let's see how this works. Let's see a little more of this. And so it's encouraging. Like, it's encouraging to see him turn the corner after, plate appearance 600 or whatever he's had in the majors, because he wasn't very good for a while, up here doing stuff. And now it's starting to work. And even the walks, he's starting to walk a little bit more. Not really like a guy who takes walks, but one who just won't swing at absolutely everything, Todd. Maybe occasionally he'll let a few go by and then get on base by mistake.
He's the Miguel Tejada anomaly, like in Moneyball. Where if anybody ever reads on Moneyball, Miguel Tejada is actually supposedly the worst baseball player to ever play, even though, remember, he was raking, although somewhat, scientific induced there. And when you're talking about guys that, we needed to hit, Andrew Vaughn was one of them, and he's now come on to be a folk hero in Milwaukee. Gavin Sheets, he's cooled off a bit after his hot start in San Diego, but he still has hit 15 home runs. So let's discuss if it's worth missing any of these former players. We're going to talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode. Recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts. The show's available on all major podcast platforms. And after you're always making me the first listen, you should always check out the From the 108, the Au Jus podcast, the From the 108 podcast. Any other podcasts I'm missing that you guys do there, Beef?
No, that's the 2. We also do the Sunday Soak, which is a YouTube only. It's not a podcast, but it is a 20-minute video of us in my hot tub answering questions. Middle-aged men, shirtless, tan, sweating quite a bit, and 108ing. It's a lot of fun, but it's not a podcast. It's just a video. So, but yes, that's the only other thing.
And they go out in the middle of the winter and do it. I mean,
we used to. We don't anymore. We only do it during the season. But yes.
Well, what's the point of having a hot tub outside if you can't use it in the middle of the winter? I mean,
just to show flesh. That's the only reason we really do it. Let's be honest with ourselves. We're trying to keep ourselves young mentally. That's why.
Well, at least you did the pro move of having your hot tub outside. Like, my old man wanted a hot tub when I was like a senior in high school. He wanted it, and I even remember my brother-in-law saying, "Don't put it in your basement," because that's where my dad wanted. He wanted in the basement because he's like, "I don't want to run outside in the cold." And he's like, "You're not going to use it once it gets in the basement. You're just not. Eventually, you're going to cover it up, and you're just never going to use it when you have it outside. And if you don't want to use it, and if it's outside, you can eventually get rid of it. It's easier to move." What does my dad do? Puts it in the basement, and that thing has been one of the biggest tables you've ever seen of just crap now. Like that's what it's got right now.
Truthfully, it is much better in the cold, to be honest with you, Todd. So that thought process is correct. We use it, I personally use it as far as like, relaxing or whatever, muscle massage, whatever, out in the cold, fall, winter, even when it's snowing, especially if it's not too cold, the best time to be in there. So yeah, he missed out. He missed out on the best temperature to have.
Especially when you watch that snow sizzle when you get out of the tub there. I mean, it's like,
exactly. And you're just feeling great, even though it's 28 degrees. Like, yeah, that's the best.
Although you're hauling and you better hope there's no ice because then you slip on there.
That's true.
All right. So, Beef, why have you had your fill of Gavin Sheets?
I have my fill of White Sox Gavin Sheets. I mean, it's not even so much Gavin Sheets' fault necessarily. It's the White Sox played him out of position a lot and asked a lot of him. They played him against left-handed pitching way too much, in my personal opinion. And just the expectations after his rookie year, in which he had a very strong half year, his rookie campaign, and the fan base's thought was like, "Oh, this guy's going to be a guy." It's like, this guy's like kind of a bench bat. And I thought this offseason, when the White Sox were making tender non-tender decisions, and they had him and Andrew Vaughn up, I actually thought they should have kept Gavin Sheets, only because of how right-handed the White Sox currently were when the offseason was, coming underway, and just thinking they could use more left-handed bats. I don't think it's a long-term solution, but for now, as a placeholder, go that way. Instead, they decided to go with Andrew Vaughn. They thought that the upside was higher with Vaughn, and then people that I talked to said, yeah, but if Vaughn were just out there and a team like our level could scoop him up, we would. So why wouldn't we just tender him and see if we can get that to work? And so the White Sox didn't get league average Gavin Sheets, and they couldn't get Andrew Vaughn to work like here either.
Yeah, and the reason why I also think that they made a missed opportunity by not tendering Sheets when they should have, and non-tendered Vaughn was you could have saved $3 million, because I think Sheets was projected to get like $2 million in ARB. I know that was like MLB trade rumors. It's not an exact science, but that's kind of a ballpark figure.
Close enough, yeah.
Yeah, you could have gotten two and saved $4 million, and then used that $4 million, because remember that this payroll is basically poverty right now. You could have used that $4 million to maybe go out and sign Jose Quintana, or get two more relievers that you could have flipped at the deadline. Because the only thing I'm mad about at the deadline, I don't want to relitigate it too much, was they totally missed out on that reliever market, because I don't think everybody was like, hey, go get me, I got to get me some Steven Wilson when there's crunch time.
No demand. Yeah, the White Sox have done that 2 years in a row, Todd. I think we talked about that the last time we talked. Is like one of the big misses of the Getz era so far is how much the pricing has been up at these trade deadlines for relievers, and how they haven't had anything in their inventory to fulfill it and just fill in more depth in the farm system. And the way people will start seeing it kind of this offseason, because the White Sox have had so many kids graduate off of their farm rankings, and they're going to look and say, oh, the White Sox were top 10. Now they're 22nd in farm ranking. It's because they lack the depth. They still need to get the depth. They've gotten better at it. They've added a lot of depth, but not quite enough to get to the point. And by missing the last two deadlines with relievers like this, they're really they skipped out on getting all those kind of middle guys. I mean, and so much so that when we're getting close to the deadline, I wrote a blog at FromThe108.com suggesting they should trade Grant Taylor, because I thought Grant Taylor will nab you a big prospect. Like, you can get a real guy for that. Now, Grant Taylor has got real arm talent, so it's a risk. But I was sort of looking around and I was like, well, when are they going to get a 50, 55 grade, prospect with the bat? When they draft at the top of the draft next year. And then I don't know when the next time is. And so I was looking at like that reliever market, and I'm looking at Mason Miller, what he's getting. I'm like, well, Grant Taylor's not Mason Miller, but he's going to get something good.
Yeah, and that's why, like, the interesting thing is that I don't think, like, my critique of Rick Hahn compared to Chris Getz was Rick Hahn actually did a good job of getting veteran relievers during the rebuild. Like, this is when you spend money on relievers during your rebuild. What you shouldn't be doing, though, is spending money on your relievers when you're a contender, because you have limited financial resources, and they've kind of are laying the groundwork of guys that could be some pretty good bullpen arms. Although I don't know if they really think too highly of a Peyton Pallette, because they still haven't called him up. They still haven't put him on the 40-man roster.
Yeah.
Like that type of stuff. But it is like they did miss the boat on that. And another thing where people maybe they missed the boat on was Andrew Vaughn. And is it getting old dealing with Brewers fans thinking the White Sox just gave up some great baseball player in Vaughn? Because remember, you were one of the people that helped me convert. I was a Vaughn truther, gosh darn it.
You were. Yes, you were. Vaughn All-Star. You were telling me Vaughn All-Star. I remember that.
Yes.
Well.
Yes, but then I came to see the light that, yes, he is nothing more than a replacement level player. But now you got these Brewers fans like, oh my gosh, thanks for Andrew Vaughn. Like, I just want to be like, guys, I want to see it then all the way through, because otherwise, I hate to tell you, he hit in June. He used to hit in June for the White Sox a lot of times. He didn't play in June this year. This is his June.
Right. Yeah, I'm getting. I don't want to say I'm getting sick of it, because I'm not against Andrew Vaughn the person. I'm happy that he's succeeding. It sucked that he didn't succeed for so long here, but I kind of looked at it that way too, Todd. Like, he is doing some different things. He is lifting the ball a little more. There is some. He's being a little more selective, etc. Maybe getting sent down woke him up. I have no idea, but I don't think that what we're seeing right now is anything close to what the reality is going to be, kind of on a longer term. I think it's a heater plus some changes. And so we'll see. And the truth will be when the Brewers decide whether or not to tender him after the season, because he, like you said, I think he made like $6 million in our 2 year. It was our 3 year, I assume, is going to pump that up, especially with how hot he's been for this little spurt here. So I don't know. They're going to spend $8 million on him, or are they going to let him walk out the door? I'll be interested to see kind of what a real smart front office like the Brewers does, or if they just say, look, thank you for that heater. We appreciate it, but you're probably not worth $8 million. We're going to let you walk out the door. I'm very curious to see what ends up happening there. I wish him well, but I still don't think a lot has changed. I think he's made a few adjustments, and we'll see how long they last for him.
Yeah, you just brought up a great point. Will the Brewers do it? Because on one end, I would say, heck yeah, they're going to do it, because if they can get a first baseman at $8 million, I mean, they completely devalue that position. They've
Right.
stopped asking for any production out of that first base since Corey Hart's knee gave out, because that was the last like all-star player that they truly had there. Otherwise, I've seen Jesus Aguilar play there. I mean, Marcus Thames. But on
Right.
the flip
That's
side,
right.
Chris Carter hit, I think, 30 or 40 home runs for the Brewers, and they non-tendered him. So it
Oh
would
yeah, I
be
remember
interesting
that.
to see. Yeah, like
Yeah.
he was. I mean, granted, he hit 220, but a guy hitting 30 to 40 home runs, and they let him walk for nothing. And that was a guy too that David Stearns brought in with him when he got hired with the Brewers, and they're just like, man, you know what? We're gonna go with Marcus Thames. We're gonna go from this guy with Korea who washed out, and because he's a lot cheaper.
Eric Thames. Marcus
Thames,
is
yes.
the hitting coach for the Sox.
How dare I?
I at first I thought you thought, hang on,
Yeah.
that's not right. Eric Thames is a muscular
Eric
guy.
Thames,
Yeah, he
you're
came
right,
from
you're
Korea.
right.
That's right.
Yes, and now my Milwaukee resident brethren are going to be so mad at me for saying, because I mean, and he became a legend. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they've had Rowdy Tellez at first base, and that's the other thing. Before we wrap up, too, like, where I get tired of Brewers fans or even like White Sox fans being so frustrated. He's being asked to do less, and if you look at his two decent seasons with the White Sox, still replacement level, 2021 and 2022. Guess who were the face of the lineup in those? Jose Abreu and Tim Anderson. He was just asked to contribute. When he was asked to be the face of that lineup, then he kind of shrieked away.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it was a problem for me. I agreed.
Yeah. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow to discuss the White Sox wrapping up their series with Atlanta. And feel free to leave comments about today's discussion with BeefLoaf of FromThe108.com. And again, where can we find your great content outside of FromThe108.com?
You can find us on YouTube at From the 108. Yeah, FromThe108.com has you everything else. On Twitter at From the 108. You can find me at Mr. Delicious13. And you can find Treasy at Treasy and My Sox Summer at My Sox Summer. That's where you can find all of our stuff on Twitter.
And then you can also find them in Section 108 when there's a White Sox game. There you go.
That's like that. And if you want, by any chance, if you want to come to our bobblehead game, Tuesday, September 16th, 108.ing/bobblehead is where you can buy the tickets. Patio party, special ticket for the bobble, and then you'll be sitting with all of us during the game. It's a $5 Tuesday as well, Todd. So a lot of people don't know that. We're doing the patio party, which is you're vested in there. You get all you can drink and eat for 2 hours. Then you go upstairs, and it's $5 hot dogs, $5 pizza, $5 draft beer. So a very nice night for everyone. They're calling it White Sox Twitter night, but in honoring From the 108. So we appreciate that.
All right, in the comments you can leave at the episode page on YouTube, X formerly Twitter at Todd J. Dubber at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.